A woman walked into a luxury car showroom. Elegant, silent, confident yet dismissed simply because of the color of her skin. No one in that room knew the person they were underestimating would change the fate of the entire company in less than an hour. She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She simply waited. And at exactly 2:45 p.m., the entire power structure flipped live in front of over 200,000 viewers. This isn't just a story about discrimination. It's a step-by-step masterclass on how someone underestimated can flip the entire board with strategy, proof, and killer composure. You're about to witness an expensive lesson. Discrimination isn't just wrong, it's incredibly costly. And the man who smirked at the beginning, 45 minutes later, nothing left to smile about. If you've ever been misjudged, this story will make you nod. If you've ever witnessed injustice, get ready because what's coming will satisfy you down to the last detail. And this is how it all began. Excuse me, what ma'am? Perhaps you'd like to check out the used cars in the back. This line might be a bit out of range. Jake didn't need a closer look to make his judgment. White shirt, gray tie, hands in his pockets, the stance of someone used to deciding for others. Linda Monroe stood still. No anger, no reply. A gray cashmere coat draped over her shoulders, a glossy leather handbag resting neatly on the reception counter. Her hair in a high bun, gold-rimmed glasses, and cream-colored heels tapping confidently against the marble floor. The showroom lighting spilled softly across the tiles. The kind of silence that only comes when no one realizes they're about to make a very big mistake. This one's expensive. You know that, right? Jake added, just loud enough for the customers across the room to hear. A young woman nearby, Zoe, narrowed her eyes, glancing at both Linda and Jake. She held a phone up, live stream on, viewers 3, 2 under 18, the number climbing by the second. Linda calmly placed her hand on the hood of the Aston Martin V12. The dark metallic paint reflected her composed face like a mirror. Do you have bank pre-approval? Jake asked, half joking, half serious. Linda didn't look at him. Her focus remained inside the car, silent, as though his words weren't worth acknowledging. Zoe whispered into her phone. She's wearing a blanc pane and a trench coat that costs over $3,000. And he's treating her like she wandered into the wrong place. Viewers 4950. Linda glanced at her phone. A message popped up from Sarah, legal ready in 15 minutes. She smiled, subtly. Almost no one noticed. Jake walked around the car, blocking the path. You're seriously thinking of buying, or just browsing for fun? Linda looked up. Her eyes met his for the first time since she entered. You might want to save that question for yourself. And just then, somewhere outside the showroom, a news van was pulling into the lot. But Jake didn't know that. And he certainly didn't know the woman standing in front of him wouldn't be paying for this car, because she was about to buy the entire place. You know, this model is usually for top-tier investors or executive-level clients. Jake spoke with the tone of someone used to educating people he assumed didn't belong. Linda said nothing. She took another step closer to the Aston Martin, her eyes still fixed on the interior. We have the Jaguar F-Type, much more affordable and incredibly reliable. Jake squinted slightly, trying to sound polite. Mid-range incomes can still access luxury if they choose the right model. Across the showroom, Zoe took a small breath. What the hell? She muttered into her phone mic, the live stream still rolling. Viewer 720. Frank, the showroom manager, stepped out of his office. Balding, navy suit, red tie, and a face that seemed permanently displeased. Is there a problem? Jake. No, just helping the customer find something suitable. Jake stressed the word suitable. Linda turned toward Frank. May I ask, who holds the highest authority here today? Frank looked slightly surprised, but recovered quickly. I'm the on-site manager. Can I assist you with something? Linda nodded lightly, then returned her focus to the car. Nothing in particular. I just wanted to confirm. Frank glanced at Jake. Are you looking to buy this model? Frank asked. I'm considering it. Well, this is a limited edition, close to $300,000. We get inquiries every month, but most aren't. Practical candidates. His eyes scanned Linda briefly, then darted away. Zoe zoomed in on Frank's face as he spoke. The smugness mixed with fake professionalism was obvious. Comments flooded the live stream. Wait, is this racism? She looks rich AF, and they're trying to get rid of her. Record this clearly. Post it on TikTok too. A female employee, Nina, stood by the service desk, watching tensely. She'd worked here for 4 years and seen scenes like this before. But this time, it felt different. There were cameras, witnesses. Linda glanced briefly at Zoe, just for a moment, then turned back to the car. This is the 2025 edition, correct? Correct, Jake replied quickly. Though it may be a stretch if you're not familiar with investing in this class. Maintenance isn't cheap either. Linda stayed silent, but Zoe muttered softly, just enough for the live stream mic to catch it. Huh. If she were white, they'd probably bring out champagne. Viewers 11,472, and still climbing. A blonde woman walked in just minutes after Linda. Tight dress, Chanel purse. One glance around and Jake was already by her side. Good afternoon. Looking for a sports coupe or a high-end SUV today? His voice turned unexpectedly smooth. Linda stood less than 3 meters away, completely ignored, as if she didn't exist. Jake smiled at the new customer, gesturing toward a white Bentley. They laughed together, chatting freely. No one turned back to check on Linda. No one asked if she needed assistance. She didn't move. Her expression didn't change. There was no anger, no disappointment. Only observation, every gesture, every glance, every avoidance filed away in her mind like bullet points in a confidential report. Frank stood behind the desk, pretending to arrange papers, but his eyes flicked toward Linda at least 3 times. Not out of respect, but calculation. He couldn't read her, and that unsettled him. Zoe's livestream kept going. Viewers passed 15,000. Comments turned serious. People started naming the dealership directly. Some even tagged Horizon Lux Cars' official account. The tension was growing, but Linda remained perfectly still. Another employee walked past her holding a stack of folders. He was about to ask if she needed help until Jake shot him a quick side glance. The young man changed direction without a word, instinctively avoiding the fallout. Linda pulled out her phone. Calmly, no rush. She opened an app. The screen showed a few metrics and graphs. In the corner was a small logo, Liberty Equities. She tapped a tab, confirmed a schedule, and locked her phone again. Outside, no one noticed the black car parked near the curb with mirrored windows. No one realized someone inside was documenting every moment unfolding in the showroom in real time. She knew the store's cameras were rolling, but the real power was flowing through that live stream, now viral and surging. And all it would take was one more misstep, one more careless phrase. She had already given them a chance, silent, patient, enough to let them reflect. But they didn't. They pushed forward. And she simply waited. Because they didn't know. The quietest person in the room is often the one holding all the cards. Viewer count hit 20,000. Comments shifted from outrage to action. A verified account reposted Zoe's stream with the caption, "Blatant class bias at Horizon Lux, unbelievable." The hashtag Horizon Bias hit local trending in under 8 minutes. Quick news pages, consumer advocates, and social justice accounts began flooding in. Some urged others to call the media. Others hunted down the dealership's review page to leave 1-star ratings. Zoe could barely keep up with her phone. Notifications came nonstop, messages, interview requests, even a DM from a news anchor. Can you send the original video? We'd like to run it on tonight's segment. Linda glanced at Zoe's screen. No blinking, no comment, but she knew everything was unfolding on schedule. An angry crowd needed no leader, just a spark, and Jake had provided enough fire to burn a brand to the ground. Inside Linda's mind, the timeline clicked into place. Liberty's media team had received the alert. The legal team was watching the stream in real time. Sentiment tracking software had begun parsing emotional trends by the second. Every word, every comment preserved as admissible evidence. The black car outside remained still. Inside, a comms assistant coordinated press contacts. 3 local TV stations had dispatched crews. 1 national channel was already en route. Zoe, unassigned, unprompted, had become the most powerful broadcaster Linda could have hoped for. A stranger in the right place, with the right phone, and the right amount of honest fury sometimes, that's the variable no strategy can plan for. Linda walked a slow circle around the car. Still the same elegant woman from earlier. But in her eyes now, something new confirmation. She'd seen enough, and they still hadn't stopped. Frank glanced out the window. That's when he noticed at least two media vans were parked just outside the showroom. But it was too late. The wave had already broken, and no one in that room was holding the reins anymore. The media storm had formed, and they hadn't even closed the windows yet. Jake returned, clearly sensing something had shifted. Something felt off, though he couldn't quite place it. But instead of stepping back, he delivered one final jab. You know, this showroom isn't really a place to test the waters. If you're looking for something more attainable, the East Side dealer has a few entry-level lines that might suit you better. Linda nodded. No anger, no rebuttal, just a calm reply. You just helped confirm exactly what I needed. The words floated past like air, but Frank turned his head sharply. His expression shifted. The confidence cracked. A flicker of doubt surfaced, then was quickly swallowed. Linda took another slow turn around the car, her fingers tracing the sleek lines like she was inspecting it one last time. No one knew she was counting down. No one knew that at exactly 2:45 the contract would activate. Her phone buzzed softly in her coat. She didn't need to look. Right on time. Everything was unfolding precisely as planned. Outside, a third news van powered down. A crew stepped out, windbreakers, tripods, press badges. Bystanders had begun to gather. Some were live streaming from the sidewalk, filming inward. Inside the showroom, Frank glanced at Jake. Their eyes met. No words exchanged, but both sensed the shift in control, even if they didn't understand how or why. Zoe lowered her phone slightly. This is about to hit breaking news, she murmured, almost to herself. But Linda heard it. She turned and met Frank's gaze fully. For the first time. Anyone else still need confirmation? Frank opened his mouth, but the desk phone rang loud and urgent. An internal call. A message popped on the screen: audit showroom activity immediately. Linda turned away before he could respond. She had waited long enough, given them every chance to do better. But not only had they ignored it, they doubled down with every word, every dismissive glance. Now it was time to move from observation to execution. From this moment on, she didn't need anyone's live stream because hers was about to go live. Linda paused beside the car, as if she were still weighing a decision. In truth, she was just waiting for attention to return to her, and it came faster than expected. A young employee, likely new, began to approach but halted mid-step when Frank emerged and gave a silent glance that said, "Don't." Linda turned to Jake. No blame. No sarcasm. Just one sentence. I've always been curious to see how people behave when they don't realize they're being watched. No one understood what she meant, but Zoe's eyes lit up. She had heard it, captured it, and she knew that line wasn't meant for Jake. Jake gave a nervous laugh, unsure whether to respond, and stepped back. Frank frowned at Zoe, realizing the camera was still rolling. The air inside the showroom began to shift. No more chatter, no more sales tone. A hush settled, in the kind that arrives right before something breaks. Linda brushed her hand along the car's edge, eyes on the spec sheet. Her voice was soft but carried. Performance numbers look nice, but how the team operates, that's where real value gets measured. Frank could feel the sweat now forming at his temple. Jake looked toward the entrance and saw two journalists speaking to the security guard, then pointing inside. Linda's phone rang. She didn't rush, didn't step away. Yes, I've arrived. Stay on schedule. She closed the call and slipped the phone back into her coat. Jake no longer stood tall. Frank had gone silent. Zoe's live stream kept going. Viewers and rising fast. Linda turned to Nina, the quiet employee who had observed it all. You've been here long. Nina nodded. Almost 4 years. Then you probably know who truly stands with the customer. And who doesn't. Nina met her eyes. The second nod came slower. Firmer. Linda smiled. Her first smile since stepping into the showroom. But no one felt comforted by it. Because it wasn't for them. Frank moved toward Jake, whispering something urgent. Jake nodded like a man on autopilot. No swagger. Just damage control. Linda sat calmly at the reception desk, posture relaxed in a way that unsettled the room. A person being dismissed shouldn't look this composed. Someone unqualified shouldn't feel this in control. On the desk, the dealership's business card lay face down. Linda flipped it over, running her finger across the silver-embossed text, Horizon Lux Cars, Beverly Branch. She murmured, Beverly, Thursday, right on time. No one knew who the line was meant for. But Zoe caught it perfectly. She shifted her phone slightly toward the front windows. Outside, through the glass, she saw what no one else had yet, a TV camera being calibrated. The crew was in position. Linda rose, began walking toward the Aston Martin again, each step ticking time down to 0. Nina swallowed hard. Something about the moment felt wrong. Everything looked calm, but like the surface of water before a dam bursts. That first smile, it wasn't a sign of comfort. It was a message the game was about to begin. And no one in that room had a card strong enough to survive it. The scent of leather, the soft click of a luxury car door closing. Polite voices laced with subtle condescension. Linda Monroe once believed that success alone would earn her respect. She had tried visiting dealerships like any regular customer. The first time in Miami, wearing an expensive suit, she was politely pointed toward pre-owned options. The second in Dallas, when she asked for a test drive, the salesman responded, "Are you here with your husband?" The third, the one that changed everything, happened at Horizon Lux's New York branch. A white customer who walked in after her was immediately invited to sit in the vehicle she had been waiting to test. Handshakes, ceremony or none. Water offered. Smiles. Linda received only skeptical glances and a curt, "Please wait a few more minutes." She didn't react then. But that evening, inside Liberty Equity's boardroom, she called an emergency meeting. On the screen, the full network map of Horizon Lux dealerships. 11 branches. Strong revenue. Quietly slipping customer feedback. "Who's next on our acquisition radar?" a board member asked. Linda looked at a graph of complaints broken down by race, gender, and age. "Them," she said. 3 months later, Liberty's legal and analytics teams launched a series of mystery shopper visits. Linda was the final one to go. She wanted to assess the last link personally. And Beverly Hills, the branch that prided itself on serving elite clientele, reacted exactly like the others. She wasn't surprised. She just confirmed she didn't walk into the showroom today to buy a car. She came to see one last time if anyone inside the system could recognize a mistake before it became a head-on collision. They didn't. She had already given them more than enough chances. And now everything was moving as it should. But before Liberty, before numbers and reports, there was a little black girl growing up in South Chicago in a 2-room apartment with a single mother. Every winter, the windows creaked from the draft, and Linda's study desk sat inches from the heater. She was gifted in math by age 8. But it wasn't until she earned a full scholarship to Wharton that she began to realize talent wasn't enough. On Wall Street, where she began her career as a financial analyst, suspicion always arrived before her resume. In her first meeting with a major investment fund, Linda was asked to make the coffee. She was the only black person in the room, the only one with an MBA, an honors distinction, and the only one no one asked for input. That day, she set a new goal to build a firm where no one would be judged by their skin or their hairstyle. Liberty Equities was born a quiet but unwavering answer to every lens of bias she had ever encountered. Linda pulled herself out of the memory. The showroom remained still. Eyes began to drift toward her again, but no one dared approach. There was something about her presence that made casual engagement feel inappropriate. She adjusted the collar of her coat, a simple gesture, but to those watching it signaled the end of silence. She had seen enough. Now it was time for the world to see who was really behind the wheel. Something subtle shifted in the Horizon Lux Beverly Hills showroom, not in action, but in atmosphere. Conversations among staff tapered off, one by one, until a quiet tension filled the air. No one could name it, but they all felt it. Something was coming. Zoe, the girl live streaming, had changed her stance. She now held her phone with both hands. Viewer count 38,000. Her expression was no longer just curiosity. It was anticipation. Jake glanced at his watch. "2 hours si far to pee?" N18. His eyes flicked back to Linda this time, with less certainty. A sheen of sweat began to form at his collar, despite the perfectly cooled showroom. Linda stood motionless next to the Aston Martin. She didn't check her phone, didn't speak, just breathed, calm, steady, like someone waiting for a clock to strike. David Carter, the branch manager, stepped out from a glass-walled meeting room. In his early 50s, well-dressed in a pale shirt and dark slacks, he looked every bit the executive. Initially annoyed by the interruption, his expression shifted the moment he took in the scene. "What's going on here?" he asked, eyes scanning from Jake to Linda, then locking onto Zoe, who was live-streaming directly toward him. "Viewer count 43,000. Jake stepped closer, speaking just loud enough for David to hear. "She might be VIP, but she didn't book an appointment. I just wanted to filter things right." David looked more carefully at Linda. Her posture, her calm but sovereign warmth, her silence. The tension in the room told him more than words ever could. "I'm David Carter, branch manager," he said, voice more composed now. "Is there anything I can assist you with?" Linda gave a slight nod. Then, silently, she lifted her phone and placed it on the car's hood screen, facing up, visible to everyone nearby. A message from Sarah, legal, glowed on the screen. "Transfer confirmed 1445. Full documentation filed with state authorities." David froze. Jake's throat went dry. He swallowed hard. Zoe stopped breathing, eyes locked on the phone, as if she knew she was capturing a moment that wouldn't repeat. David stumbled back half a step, as if instinctively bracing for an impact he couldn't quite define. Linda turned to him, voice steady and low. "I'll need 10 minutes of your time. After that, everything here will change." 10 minutes of silence had passed. Now it was their turn to listen word by word. The Horizon Lux showroom had never been this quiet. No footsteps, no conversations, just a thick silence hanging in the air, like everyone sensed they were standing on the edge of something irreversible. Linda reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a navy folder with gold-embossed corners. She placed it gently on the hood of the Aston Martin, the same spot where the legal message had just lit up her screen. The title page, clear and bold, Premier Automotive Acquisition Contract. Jake blinked rapidly. David straightened, as if someone had just struck him at the base of his neck. Zoe panned her phone slowly toward the document. "Viewer count 68,000. "Is this some kind of joke?" David asked, his voice stretched tight, trying, and failing, to sound in control. Linda didn't flinch. She didn't smirk or blink. She simply opened the folder and flipped to the notarized page stamped with a distinct blue seal. "Meridian Capital confirms acquisition completed at 14:45 p.m. Jake took an unconscious step back, still staring. Then Linda lifted her head. Calmly, steadily. 14 minutes ago, ownership of this dealership officially changed hands. I now hold complete executive authority." The silence was total. Even the gentle hum of the showroom lights seemed to vanish. David stammered. That's impossible. I need to call Mr. Rodriguez. He owns the group." "Go ahead," Linda nodded. "Serene." David fumbled for his phone. But before he could dial, Linda lifted hers again. A call was already coming in. "Caller ID Janet Rodriguez, former owner." She answered with a single swipe and tapped speaker. A clear, assertive female voice filled the room. "Dr. Monroe, I confirm full operational control of Premier Beverly Hills has been transferred as agreed. Meridian and I are fully aligned on the sale. Congratulations." David froze mid-breath. Jake gripped the edge of the reception desk for balance. Zoe said nothing. "Viewer count 80,000. Linda ended the call, closed the folder, and slipped it neatly back into her coat. The room stood still, as if someone had paused reality. They didn't lose power because it was stolen. They gave it away word by word, glance by glance, assumption by assumption. David stood frozen, hands still clenched around his phone, unable to dial. Jake looked around the room, as if searching for an escape from a space that was closing in with every second. Linda remained silent. She stood with the quiet poise of someone who had already run this scene 100 times in her mind and knew exactly how it ended. Outside, a line of reporters was beginning to form against the showroom glass. Microphones, camera lights, and zoom lenses were all aimed inward. Zoe shifted slightly to the side, stepping away from the glare. Viewer count 92,000. Several news platforms had begun mirroring her live stream in real time. Jake's voice broke the silence, dry and cracking. "What exactly do you want here?" Linda didn't answer him. Instead, her gaze drifted upward to the surveillance cameras mounted on the ceiling. Calmly, she walked toward the reception counter where her briefcase still sat, untouched as if waiting for this precise moment. She opened it and retrieved a small device, no larger than a hearing aid. "This has recorded every word since the moment I walked in." Jake's face drained of color. David let out a shallow, broken breath, as if realizing something too late. Linda placed the device gently on the counter, beside a second folder thicker, marked with a red tag labeled Priority. She opened it without urgency, revealing a series of documents, graphs, transcripts, pattern analyses. Every chart pointed to one thing. Discrimination-related complaints at this location were 340% higher than industry average. David staggered slightly. Jake said nothing. "Couldn't Durham." "For the past 6 months," Linda began, her voice steady, "I commissioned anonymous testing, sending clients of different races, ages, attire. The results speak for themselves." She looked up, meeting neither of their eyes directly. Her expression was unreadable, no smugness, no triumph. Just the quiet fatigue of someone who had seen this play out far too many times. "You weren't destroyed by some outside force. You did this yourselves through every dismissive glance, every assumption you made without hesitation." She didn't need to bring them down. They'd already dug the hole. All she did was show the world where they stood. Several seconds passed, heavy, deliberate. The kind of silence that only occurs before a room collectively realizes it's about to implode. Everyone's eyes were on Linda's staff, customers, security. Even the light from outside seemed to pause. She closed her eyes briefly. A subtle signal, like a conductor lifting the baton. Then came the reveal. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a small audio recorder. Without dramatic flair, she pressed play. Jake's voice echoed. A woman like her shouldn't be asking about the Aston. The recording was sharp, clear, and unforgiving. The tone unmistakable. Then came snippets of a conversation between Jake and Frank, mocking her, questioning if she could even afford to be in the showroom, asking staff to watch the expensive models. Linda laid out the transcripts beside the device. She didn't look up. Her calm wasn't passive, it was surgical. "Do you have anything you'd like to say?" she asked softly. Frank's mouth parted, but no sound came out. Jake's hands had curled into fists at his sides, though not from anger, just the dawning recognition of something lost. In the background, Zoe didn't speak either. Her live stream was still rolling. Viewer count 104,000, and rising. The world was watching the unraveling. Linda then pulled out another folder, this one embossed and official. Inside were letters from legal counsel, formal documents noting that control of the business had been transferred under emergency provisions. She didn't read it out loud, just placed it beside the recorder with one phrase underlined. "Immediate operational authority begins today." Jake stepped back. Frank lowered his head. Neither had uttered the one word that might have offered dignity: sorry. But Linda wasn't asking for it. She wasn't here for apologies. From across the room, Zoe glanced at her phone. Viewer count 112,000. News accounts had started resharing her stream. One had already captioned it, "Racism and its real cost." A young receptionist, Joshua, stood frozen. He didn't know who Linda was, but he knew she didn't come to buy a car. She came to clean house. Linda turned toward Jake, gaze sharp as a scalpel. "This isn't just about me. It's about every person you judged the moment they walked through those doors." She pointed toward the glass entrance now lined with camera crews. "Today, that judgment answers to the public." She didn't need to raise her voice. The whole country was listening for her. Linda unfolded a report not about money, but about people. Each line was a forgotten complaint, a silent rejection, an overlooked experience. No names, just pain turned into data. Every number represented someone who once walked in and was turned away with a polite smile and a quiet dismissal. But today, they had a voice, and it was hers. She flipped to the next page. Graphs. Comparison. Behavior differentials between white customers and customers of color. The disparity was clear, glaring, inescapable. And right there, in the metadata, the names Jake, Frank and the internal justifications they'd clung to for years. Jake began to speak. Linda raised her eyes. Just her eyes. It stopped him mid-sentence. You don't owe me an explanation, she said. Sachbin, calm, crisper, said one. Sir, you owe one to the press, to the public, and to every employee who watched you do it and said nothing. Frank turned away. On the table, another recording lay waiting, Jake's voice captured, saying, if a customer looks off, steer them toward the used lot. Linda didn't need to press play. She simply slid the report across the table toward Zoe, ensuring that the 120,000 live viewers could read the title clearly. Discriminatory Sales Practices, Premier Motors 18-month report. The clock on the showroom wall ticked quietly. It hit 2:45 p. in me. The exact moment Linda had told her assistant, be ready. Outside, the flash wasn't sunlight, it was cameras. Dozens of reporters were flooding toward the glass doors. Linda calmly closed her briefcase. She didn't need to say anything more. The documents, the data, and the prejudice had already spoken for themselves. She didn't have to accuse anyone. The truth had already done it for her. Linda stepped into the center of the showroom. In front of her stood Jake, frozen. Behind him, Frank kept his eyes lowered. Every click of her heels echoed like a countdown, each step sealing a fate that could no longer be reversed. She stopped, locked eyes with Jake. You have two options. No one moved. Resign immediately and leave with a neutral reference. Or be terminated for willful discriminatory conduct. No severance. No recommendation. A permanent note on your record. Jake opened his mouth, but no words came. Linda didn't rush him. She didn't have to. For the first time, he understood what accountability felt like. At the reception desk, Zoe panned her phone silently. Viewer count 135,000. Every word's being recorded, she whispered. Linda retrieved a document from her briefcase, a resignation letter already bearing Jake's name. At the top, voluntary resignation, unconditional. You just need to sign, she said, almost softly. Jake stared at the paper, at Linda, then bowed his head and signed. Before the ink dried, Linda slid the paper back into her case. Frank swallowed hard. Linda turned to him, voice steady. You'll be reassessed. I want to see growth or I'll see you leave. Frank nodded. No resistance. Outside, camera shutters clicked rapidly. This wasn't just about a single showroom anymore. It had become a national moment. A public display of how justice could be delivered line by line, consequence by consequence. She didn't need to raise her voice. They bowed on their own. After Jake signed, Linda turned to the remaining staff and the reporters moving steadily into the showroom. The atmosphere felt almost ceremonial, solemn, but weighted with meaning. Linda stood tall, her gaze sweeping the room. Today isn't just about disciplinary action, she said, her voice clear and steady for all to hear. It's a warning and a promise. Frank remained silent. Several other staff members did too. For the first time, respect and caution mingled in their eyes. Linda produced a new document, a formal announcement of a sweeping reform. All employees would undergo renewed training on service mindset and equity. Every future complaint would be processed transparently, with external oversight. She addressed the press directly. We are committed Premier will be the new standard of fairness, not just on paper, but in every single interaction. Zoe turned her phone, capturing Linda at the center of the moment. Viewer count 147,000. Comments flooded in, with many sharing their own stories. A young woman from the sales team, voice trembling, stepped forward. Thank you. Today, we saw something I never thought was possible. Linda gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Justice isn't automatic. It takes people willing to speak up and never give up. Outside, the sounds of sirens and arriving media continued, but not a single person in the building saw Linda the way they once had. From this moment on, every promise had to become real and everyone knew she would be watching. 6 weeks after the transition, Premier Motors looked nothing like its old self. The change wasn't just in the new faces, it was in the atmosphere, no longer tense, no longer wary. In its place, confidence, professionalism, and genuine warmth in every handshake and greeting. Linda made unannounced visits, strolling through the sales floor and chatting with both new and veteran staff. She didn't need to scrutinize, she just listened, picking up on the casual conversations that now filled the room. Welcome in. Here, everyone is treated fairly. If you have any questions, please ask. We're happy to help. Above, a digital board tracked customer feedback, the numbers ticking higher each day. Satisfaction rating 4. 8 out of 5, the highest in store history. Younger employees introduced products with confidence, no longer casting nervous glances at supervisors. Customers of every background came and went, asking questions, seeking advice, each greeted with equal respect. Linda sat in the lounge listening to the story of an older woman who'd once been denied a test drive. Today, she signed the paperwork for her dream car, smiling wide. Things I thought would never change, the woman said, gripping Linda's hand. Sometimes it just takes one person speaking up. The press ran constant features on the premiere story, a new symbol for real corporate reform. Change from within, no slogans, just action. On the wall, bold lettering announced, "Here, every customer matters." A new beginning had taken root, and this time, no one was left behind. 3 months passed, and Premier Motors was no longer just a dealership, it had become a destination for visiting business leaders, students, and reporters. People came not to browse the latest models, but to witness, firsthand, a living model of corporate cultural transformation. Linda welcomed these groups openly, transparently sharing every process from real-time feedback systems, routine equity training, to a public digital incident reporting app. Nothing was hidden. She encouraged hard questions, even the ones that stung. One afternoon, a former employee who had once lost her job after speaking up about discrimination came to see Linda. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Thank you for showing me that telling the truth doesn't make you weak. It makes everyone stronger." Linda smiled, answering gently, "We can't change the past, but any of us can start again by doing what's right. Today." On social media, thousands began sharing their own experiences of bias, using the hashtag #PremierChange. Small businesses and companies across the city started to follow suit, adopting transparency and fairness as hiring and service standards. Premier's revenue soared, but for Linda, the greatest pride came from the silent data customer complaints fell to record lows. Those quiet numbers spoke louder than any press release. Finally, when the media asked her for the secret, Linda offered just one answer. If you want to change society, start with the smallest actions. Repeat them every day, until justice becomes the ordinary. And by then, equity isn't a slogan, it's simply habit. Day by day, person by person, Linda left the showroom in the golden light of late afternoon. Outside, staff and customers had changed, and the premiere story continued to inspire across forums and news feeds. She paused in front of the final camera, her gaze direct. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you look or watched someone else face injustice? Unsure how to respond? If you've ever thought, "I wish I'd spoken up," let today be the day you do. A bold message appeared on the screen. Have you ever experienced or witnessed discrimination? Share your story, your feelings, or your questions below. Every story is fuel for real change. Linda smiled, her voice calm and steady. Don't forget to subscribe to Unveiled Wealth, where we reveal the truth, spread justice, and empower each other. Like and share this video if you want more stories that inspire change. Here's a question for you. What made you stay silent or speak out in your own life? And if you could choose again, what would you do differently? She turned away, her silhouette strong in the setting sun. Justice starts with a single voice. Next time, that voice could be yours. Your story could be the first step to something much bigger.